Unitarian Church of Hobart, where we strive to put love at the center of how we show up in the world. I'm Carla Banks, your worship associate this morning. Welcome to you, old friends and new, young and old. You are an essential part of our celebration today. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Today, our worship service will be led by our minister, Reverend Cathy Harrington. Since not everyone can attend in person, we are streaming this worship service online, and we extend a special welcome to all who are joining us virtually. Another way we walk together is by joining together for fun and fellowship. Look at our weekly Spark for more announcements, and if you don't receive the Spark, you can fill out a visitor form in the parish hall. Now we have two lovely ladies with announcements today, Michelle and Barb.
Hello, everybody. Our congregation has some big ministry and financial decisions coming up, and the Growth and Sustainability Task Force, or GAS, would like your voice to be heard. There's only one more session this Thursday at 6 o'clock, and we will have pizza here at church. So see me or Doug if you would like to come, or just come. Childcare is available. See me if childcare is needed. Today at 4:30, we're going to have the documentary No Country for Mothers about what motherhood is like in America today. Doors open at 4 for snacks, and then the film's at 4:30 with the discussion afterwards. So if you'd like to hang out a little bit longer or come back this afternoon, we'll be here for that. Childcare is available for that. Let me know if you need that. We have collected for the River Forest School Nurses Closet before. The River Forest school system, a lot of their families have been out of power, so the school nurse has been letting families come get supplies out of the school supply closet for themselves. So the River Forest Nurses Supply closet is empty now because they've been giving out so many donations to people for the storm. So we're collecting this week and next week. There's a list in the parish hall on the big wooden box of what is needed, or you can just give me money and I'll shop. We're needing donations for 2 upcoming events. We have a Stranger Things themed escape room fundraiser on October 3rd. The room is going to be decorated as an 80s teen boys room. So if you have any old 80s vintage stuff laying around that we could use to decorate an 80s boys room for the escape room fundraiser, let me know. And also the ice cream shop that will be having concessions during the escape room is nautical themed like it is in the show. So if you have any nautical decoration, let us know of that also. The 4th annual Feral Bocce Ball fundraiser, come to our house on September 12th. That's a Saturday at 1 o'clock. Rain date would be the next day after church. It's $25 per person to eat, $25 to play bocce. Drinks and dinner are included, and you can just eat dinner if you don't want to play bocce. There's a sign-up sheet out there. You can just talk to me. If you don't have a partner, we will find you one. The winning team receives bragging rights and splits half of the bocce ball money. So you can pay Ashley or pay online with bocce in the comments, or you can bring your money that day. See me or Tracy if you have any more questions. The board is in. I will be in the garden during coffee hour today to answer any questions, take comments, concerns that you'd like to just ask me about or discuss today during coffee hour. Okay, thank you. Oh, one more thing. The Faith in Action meeting in the Spark, it's online, so just FYI, if you're interested in that, it's on the Zoom. So if you have any more questions about the Faith in Action meeting, let me know.
Hello, everybody. I made some notes here because I'm getting old. I can't remember it all. I'm the co-chair of worship ministry along with Sandy Waters. And starting today, we will not be stopping the recording during Joys and Sorrows. It will keep going. Many individuals were expressing that they wanted us to remain online. This doesn't have to be permanent. We're experimenting right now. We welcome any feedback. We will be changing things moving forward in the worship series. And we just want to keep you on your toes, you know. And there's always, feedback is always welcome. There's, on the worship team is Sandy, me, Carla, Rachel, Jesse, and Maggie. I wouldn't forget you, Maggie. Okay, just want to let you know. Thank you.
And I do want to say I was at the gas meeting workshop yesterday, and it was very productive. We got a lot done. That's good. Okay, please take a moment to greet your neighbors. Really, greet your neighbor. Say hello to someone you don't know. Please turn off or silence your devices. And as you do so, allow yourself to enter sacred time together. Take a deep breath. Another. Join us in a spirit of reverence.
Good morning. Oh, it's a beautiful morning. It's good to be together again. Each week during our Sunday morning worship service, we join in reciting the words of affirmation. So please join me. They'll be on your screen. Love is the doctrine of this church, and quest for truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer. And this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Beautiful. The flaming chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It suggests the transformations that take place when we are held within religious community. When we light the chalice in worship, we illuminate a world that we feel called upon to serve with love and a sense of justice. Please join us in lighting our chalice by reading together the words on the screen and in your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of a life we share together. And please join us in singing the doxology. Rise if you're able.
Through every land, by every tongue.
This morning's invocation is by the Reverend Gretchen Haley. Though you have been warned and given plenty of explanations, reasons to do otherwise, you have persisted to claim a life of joy and justice and to carve out this time for renewal. The renewal of your heart, despite the din demanding your attention and luring you towards fear and cynicism, you persist with gratitude for this day, this life that has been given, this chance to begin again. Despite all the forces of fragmentation, the disappointing ways we fail ourselves and each other, we must refuse to let grief undo us or let our dreams get lost along the way. In spite of all the evidence, we keep showing up at the edge of our own longing, and then we keep going, remembering the duty we have to life, in a greater sense, this duty we have to each other, to our children and their children. This hope that is also a choice we make, this promise we fight, to persist in kindness, persevere in compassion, prevail in a life that is bound entirely to love. Come, let us worship together. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 15, The Lone Wild Bird. This morning's story for all ages is called A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. Camilla Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camilla was always worried about what other people thought of her, and today she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits. I've done that before. But none seemed quite right, and she put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror, and then she screamed. Her mother ran into the room and screamed too. Oh, my goodness. Oh, dear. Okay, that's not quite the picture that... Oh, my heavens, she said, you're covered in stripes, which was certainly true. Camilla was striped from head to toe, and she looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt her forehead. Do you feel all right, dear? I feel fine, but just look at me. You're going back to bed this instant, her mother ordered. You're not going to school. Camilla was relieved because she didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what the other kids would say. And she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camilla, and he said, most extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it. Do you have chills, coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, hot flashes, dizziness, shortness of breath, uncontrollable twitching? No, said Camilla, I feel fine. Well, then I don't see any reason she shouldn't go to school tomorrow, said Dr. Bumble. Here's the ointment. That should help clear up the stripes in a few days. If it doesn't, you know where to reach me. Oh, well, the next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camilla. They called her Camilla Crayon and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal, but then when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she broke out in stars. The other kids thought this was great, and one yelled, "Let's see some purple polka dots." Sure enough, Camilla turned all purple polka dotty, and someone else yelled checkerboard, and a pattern of squares covered her skin. And soon everyone was calling out all sorts of different shapes and colors, and Camilla changed faster than you can change channels on TV. And so that night, Mr. Harms, the principal at the school, called and said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cream, I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. She's just too much of a distraction." And I've been getting calls from other parents who think she might be contagious. Well, Camilla was so embarrassed, she couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her, and now nobody wanted to even be in the same room with her. And her father wanted her to feel better, so he said, "Is there anything I can get you, sweetheart?" "No, thank you." What she really wanted, though, was a nice plate of lima beans. Well, I see Dr. Bumble came again, and he brought a bunch of doctors. He said, "I'm bringing in the specialist, Mrs. Cream." So an hour later, he arrived with 4 people in long white coats and introduced them, Dr. Grupp, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young. They worked on her. They tested, squeezed, jabbed, tapped, and it was very uncomfortable. "Not the mumps," said Dr. Grupp, "or the measles," Dr. Sponge said. "Not chicken pox or sunburn. Try these," said the specialist. So they handed her a bottle of pills, different colored pills. Take one each night before bed. And they filed out the door. That night she took her medicine, and it was awful. When she woke up, she did feel different, but when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit. And she looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a multicolored pill with her face on it. So Dr. Bumble rushed over again, and this time, instead of specialists, he brought experts. The finest scientific minds in the land, Mr. Gord and Mr. Mellon. And she was poked and prodded and listened to, and the experts wrote lots of numbers down. Finally, Dr. Gord thought it might be a virus. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla. Or a bacteria, Dr. Mellon said. And popped up squiggly little bacteria tails. Or a fungus, said Dr. Gord. And she was covered with fungus splotches. You get the picture, right? Dr. Gord said, "We need to go over these numbers at the lab, so we'll call you if we have any results." And by that time, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house telling the story of the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. And people were camped out on the yard. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies. Okay, next picture. Oh, there we go. From the psychologists, the allergists, the herbalists, the nutritionists, the psychics, the medicine man, the gurus, and even a veterinarian threw his hat in the ring. So each so-called cure only added to her strange appearance. As you can see, she sprouted roots and berries and feathers and crystals and a long furry tail. So one day, there was a knock at the door, and it was an environmental therapist. And she claimed she could cure Camilla. She said, "Breathe deeply and become one with your room." "Oh, I wish you hadn't said that," said Camilla, and suddenly she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth, her nose was a dresser, 2 paintings were her eyes, and the therapist screamed and ran from the room. "What are we going to do? It's just getting worse," said Camilla. She sobbed, and suddenly there was a little quiet knock at the door. Mr. Cream opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. "Excuse me," she said, "I think I can help." And she went in Camilla's room. My goodness, what have we here? It's a bad case of stripes, the worst I've ever seen. She pulled out some small green beans from her bag, and she said, here, these might do the trick. Are those magic beans? Mrs. Cream asked. Oh, no, they're just plain old lima beans. I bet you'd like some, wouldn't you? She asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big, heaping plate full of lima beans more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. No one likes lima beans, she said, especially me. Oh, dear, said the woman. I guess I was wrong about you. She put the beans back in her bag and started toward the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, and being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she was going through. She couldn't stand it any longer, so finally she said, wait. The truth is, I love lima beans. I thought so, said the old woman with a smile, and she took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. Said Camilla. Afterwards, suddenly, the branches, feathers, squiggly tails began to disappear, and the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, said the old woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. And she patted Camilla on the head and went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never, ever had another stripe again.
Each week, we share a portion of our Sunday offering with a social justice cause outside our church walls. This month, we are sharing our loose change collection. With the Humane Wildlife Indiana. The series of storms that came through Porter County Monday caused significant tree damage to their property. They have several cages that will need repaired, with one cage now being completely taken out of commission for the season. A number of trees that have fallen or are now leaning will need to be removed from animal areas and from against cages, and they will need to assess the amount of damage that was done to their education center. Donations in the basket will go to sustaining the mission of our congregation, and the donations in the cups goes to the Humane Wildlife Indiana. Would for volunteers please come up? And if you're not in person with us today, there's an online link for both one-time and regular donations. For your prayers, your presence, your gifts, and your service, we are truly grateful.
In the center of our service and in the center of our lives, let us pause to honor the silences of the world. Let us open our hearts to the place of quiet, the silent prayer for the healing of pain, and the soft, gentle coming of love. I have a prayer written by Ann Weems. She wrote this prayer at the start of the Iraq War, but it feels so appropriate right now. On the edge of war, 1 foot already in, I no longer pray for peace. I pray for miracles. I pray that stone hearts will turn to tender-heartedness, and evil intentions will turn to mercifulness. And all the soldiers deployed will be snatched out of harm's way, and the whole world will be astounded to its knees. I pray that all the God talk will take bones and stand up and shed its cloak of faithlessness and walk again in its powerful truth. I pray that the whole world might sit down together and share its bread and wine. Some say there is no hope, but I have always applauded the holy fools who never seem to give up on the scandalousness of our faith, that we are loved by God, that we can truly love one another. I no longer pray for peace. I pray for miracles. Let's dedicate our silence this morning to all the folks who are still without power, who seem to be being neglected by our government. And now I invite you to light a candle of memory or hope, or sit quietly while the music continues to hold us in a meditative space. Good morning. How are you, Linda? Hi, how are you? light this last candle for those of you at home and for all of you in the room who have joys or sorrows left in your heart. And now let us fill the space, the sacred space, with the names of loved ones we hold close this morning, some celebrating in joy and some suffering in sorrow. This morning, we hold our member Vivian Austin in our hearts. She's in the hospital, having had a fall and had to have surgery to repair a broken ankle. So cards and gestures of support would be welcome, and perhaps when she gets home and regains her mobility, we can figure out a meal train. The breath of nature is upon us, the spirit of life is within us, and the community of love surrounds us. So be it. Amen.
Joys and sorrows is a time to share personal joys that you are celebrating so that we might celebrate with you as a community. It's also a time to share personal sorrows that weigh on our hearts so that we can support one another in our times of sorrow and grief. As a welcoming congregation, we have decided to include those at home watching online in our sharing to affirm their presence as an essential part of our beloved community. Ms. Ross, would you do the honors? Thank you.
I love all of you, and for all your kindness, you care that you show to me. It means the world. I love you. And we need all the prayers. Tom especially, because he's told that he was released from therapy, and it depends on his insurance company, which is Medicaid. It's one of them, you know? So please keep prayer that he will go back to therapy because he deserves it and he deserves to walk.
Amen.
And it means the world for Deanna, my best friend, Carla, my ultimate best friend. You are my church family and you mean everything to me. And this is a big list, but I'm going to say God is love. And if you want to know who I'm praying for, see me in coffee hour. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Lisa Marie. I've just been very busy traveling and been busy. I'm going to get even busier, so come see me at County Line Orchard. I'll be starting there again this fall for those donuts.
Good morning, I'm Linda, and a while ago I shared that one of my friend's daughters, who I have known since the age of 2 years old, was in trouble with the law, and she received sentencing, but they're very hopeful. It's 5 years with 4 years probation if she follows all the steps that she needs to, and we're very hopeful because so far she's followed everything. And the judge was a woman who was very understanding of the circumstances that brought her to the place where she ended up being incarcerated. And her mom and I spoke, and we're both very thankful for that judge and hopeful that that's going to help that young woman become stronger, and we're there to support her.
Not like family and friends to keep you going forward.
Yes, my name is Dick Hagelberg. I wanted to welcome Linda Jefferson back to the congregation after many years. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Ian Sutcliffe, and I wanted to share a joy that I was going to be playing for a family out in Cherville's funeral of their father. I play for a group called Taps for Veterans, which provides buglers to families that haven't been able to get them otherwise, but they were finally able to get cleared by the VA to get, the full military honors with flag folding and live taps. So I won't be going out there after church today, but I'm very glad for them that they were able to get that honor for their father.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ruth, and I think I better announce that John's mother has passed away, and he has mourned her a long time ago because there's been cut off there, but it's still significant. So, thank you.
So sorry. I want to thank everyone for their thoughts and prayers. Always, always appreciated.
I'm going to brag. My granddaughter played in a tournament Friday night and Saturday. Unfortunately, because of the bronchitis I'm recovering from, I wasn't there. She scored most of the goals for both games, and she's a really real treasure. But more importantly, she is not participating in the tournament today because she's doing an autism walk.
Oh, bless her heart.
She can do everything. Love it.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your thoughts and prayers.
Thank you. So I don't have a reading today because my sermon is a little long, and I'm going to try to edit. And if I talk too fast, raise your hand because I get anxious about this. So the sermon's called "Finding Our Way Home: A Spiritual Journey." The Buddha's story might be described as a spiritual journey. Yeah, he had a spiritual journey or an odyssey. Thomas More said that an odyssey is a noble image for the mysterious process called life. Philip Sheldrake, a religious scholar, said spirituality is one of these subjects whose meaning everybody claims to know until they try to define it. It can have different meaning for different people from different faith traditions and cultures, but in the long run, spirituality characterizes us as human. We are all on a journey, both inner and outer, finding our way home. Spirituality is a longing to experience and name the ultimate mystery. It's the outworking in a real life of a person's religious faith and what a person does with what they believe. Joseph Campbell describes the spiritual mystery as a deeper awareness of the very act of living. How to live in this world and make sense of awe, gratitude, and even rapture. Unitarian Universalists, as a source, they name the direct experience of transcending mystery and wonder, affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the life of spirit and the openness to the forces that create and uphold life. The Latin word spiritus has been defined as breathing, breath, wind. Spiritus is the official journal of the Society for the Study of Christian Spirituality. And Sandra Schneiders is the founder and director of a PhD program about spirituality at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. She defines spirituality this way. Spirituality is understood as the unique and personal response of individuals to all that calls them to integrity and transcendence. It's not exclusively Christian. People speak intelligibly of Buddhist, Native American, African spirituality, and more. And some would maintain that spirituality is not necessarily theistic or religious. How many times have you heard people say, I'm spiritual but not religious? Lots. So Schneider's claims, after 2 decades of research, that in order for one to become accomplished in the spiritual life, it requires discipline, study, and practice, just in the same way that people do to become an accomplished musician. So the Buddha's journey was one of study and practice and discipline before he accomplished his goal of enlightenment. And then he devoted his life after enlightenment. He was a bodhisattva then. He taught others. And he never claimed divinity. And when he asked who he was, he simply answered, "I am awake." He likened his teaching to the tools whose value are in their usefulness, like rafts are to people who want to get across the river, but then the raft becomes a burden afterwards if you try to carry it with you. So Unitarians are fond of saying Jesus wasn't the truth. He came to teach the truth. So both Jesus and Buddha were enlightened teachers. Both were men embarking on a journey to seek the truth, and both had to face difficult obstacles and sacrifices along the way. Their journey stories are similar to Joseph Campbell's hero's journeys. So Campbell was a student of the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, and the hero mythography of Campbell is often described as Jungian archetypes. So they always follow the same pattern. The short form is the hero is introduced in this ordinary world where he receives a call to adventure. He's reluctant at first, but is encouraged by a wise old woman or man to cross the first threshold. He encounters tests and helpers, and he reaches the innermost cave where he endures the supreme ordeal. He seizes a sword or treasure and is pursued on his road back to his world. He is resurrected and transformed by the experience and returns to his ordinary world with a treasure, a boon, or an elixir to benefit the world. So Thomas More, who's also a Jungian, said, "The soul doesn't evolve or grow, it cycles and twists, repeats and reprises, echoing ancient themes common to all beings, all human beings, and that our odyssey of soul runs counterpart to our odyssey of life." So counterpoint, I had to look it up, because I really wanted to understand what that, you probably know what that is, Jeremy, but I didn't know what counterpoint was. So it's defined as one or more independent melodies added above or below a given melody. So the counterpoint in Jungian psychology might be called the shadow, revealing yet another variation on the theme of the spiritual journey or odyssey. Jungian analyst and author Robert Johnson says it as our human nature to overlook the best in ourselves and in life because we are not prepared to search in unusual places. The spiritual journey, he says, is owning our own shadow. You've heard about the shadow. We are born to this world whole and complete, and society and culture intervenes, fractures our psyches into the ego and the shadow. Johnson refers to the myth of the Garden of Eden and the tree of good and evil. He says we eat the wonderful fruits of the tree of knowledge and separate things into good and evil. And we begin to the shadow-making process, and we divide our lives, like Camilla divided her life. In the cultural process, we sort out our God-given characteristics into those that are acceptable to society and those that must be put away. And this is wonderful and necessary. There would be no civilized behavior in society if we didn't sort out the good and evil. But those refused characteristics that we want to put into our shadow don't go away. They only collect in the dark corners of our personality. And when they've been hidden long enough, they take a life of their own. So the shadow part of our personality doesn't enter adequately into consciousness because it is the despised corner of our being. So the shadow will accumulate energy as more than our ego, and it can erupt as overpowering rage or indiscretion that slips past us. We have a depression or an accident that seems to have its own purpose. The shadow gone autonomous is a terrible monster in our psychic house, Johnson says. So the goal of our journey, our spiritual journey, is to integrate the shadow into our lives. But you know, Johnson says people are apt to resist the noble aspects of their shadow more strenuously than they are the dark sides. To draw skeletons out of the closet is relatively easy, but to own the gold in the shadow, he says, is terrifying. It can be more disrupting to feel that you have a profound nobility, he says, a nobility of character, than to find out that you're just a bum. He said that, not me. So maybe because it means changing the way we live to reflect our nobility. Johnson says the gold of our shadow is related to our higher calling. To integrate our inner and outer life is to become whole. It is the work of the spiritual journey, the goal of life. But it cannot happen without discipline and practice. But the consequences of doing that is that you might become Gandhi or Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King. The common misconception of the spiritual journey is that to become a spiritual being, we must be perfect. In my research on spiritual journey from the Christian perspective, the Jungian perspective, the Buddhist perspective, the Native American, etc., the common theme is wholeness, not perfection. And there's a huge difference. The word religion means to relate, to put back together, to heal the wounds of separation. Our woundedness, our imperfections are often our best ingredients. So we're born whole, we become divided as we try to conform to society, learn skills, and develop the outer personality. We work very hard at acquiring things that make us feel whole, degrees, houses, cars, great jobs, and we succeed in building a lopsided life. We work hard, we raise a family, and discover that there is still a longing that remains unfulfilled. The second half of life, Johnson said, is devoted to restoring that wholeness, making holy of life. Thomas More, remember, said the soul doesn't evolve or grow, it cycles and twists and repeats and reprises. The spiritual path is never straight or even. And it can often lure us to frightening places. After all, the Buddha wound up sitting under the Bodhi tree waiting for enlightenment while the hideous forces of Mara's army did their best to stop him. And Jesus was led into the desert to be tempted by the devil. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights, not only challenging, but unpleasant and frightening. So it's my job as your minister is to ask you, how is your journey going? How is it with your soul? Have you encountered the Bodhi tree? Have you entered the desert? We are all going to be faced with tests and challenges. But it's important to remember that there are others who have gone before us. That's why these ancient myths are so valuable in our culture. The spiritual journey is not perfection, but wholeness. The psyche, Johnson says, keeps its equilibrium as accurately as the body balances its temperature. He uses a seesaw to illustrate where we sort out our God-given characteristics, putting the acceptable ones on the right side of the seesaw and the ones that don't conform on the left. And the seesaw must be balanced to maintain our equilibrium. So you can see what happens when we try hard to be good or perfect. We can throw, or if we throw all caution to the wind, everything is thrown off balance. Johnson says that the fulcrum is the holy place, the stable center, the balancing point. And it too can break if it becomes heavy loaded and cause a breakdown. The key is, in this analogy, is to understand the paradox. The counterpoint is in our souls. The day is only comprehensible in contrast to the night. The electric plug in the wall has two prongs, access to positive and negative electrical charge. Activity only has meaning in relation to rest. Up is only up because of the presence of down. So we're all on this journey to integrity and transcendence that requires an integration of all of the aspects. So we can't reach that holy center until we relax our hold on life, embrace our shadow, find harmony in the counterpoint of our souls. So, returning to Johnson's point of owning our own shadows, he is clear that our tendency is to resist our more noble characteristics. The treasure will be found in the least likely places. So, what treasure may be buried in your backyard? In the inner life, what good can come from your shadow? In the Gospel of John, when Jesus was introduced as the Messiah, one of the disciples said, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Typical, right? It was a peasant village. So when I read the Buddha's story about the beginnings as a prince sheltered from the harsh realities of life, I thought of my own childhood and my sheltered beginning. In a comfortable middle-class home, I was pretty sure I was a princess. My parents did all they could to protect and nurture me and comfort me, and I wasn't aware of people living in poverty or oppression. The closest I came to having a clue was that universal command, "Clean up your plate, there are starving children in China." Though I don't remember my mother ever saying that to me, I must have picked it up on TV. After all, I was born in the 50s. We watched Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, Lassie, Annie Oakley. So it was a rude awakening when I found myself as a single mother living below the poverty level. You might say I began my spiritual journey in Christian Science Sunday School as a child. The beautiful clarity that Mary Baker Eddy interpreted the Bible shaped who I was and allowed me to live without fear of God. God is love, she said. And she was one of the first theologians to refer to God as Father, Mother. And she viewed Jesus as a teacher, not as God, as Christianity often, always says. So, but I really think my spiritual journey, real spiritual journey, began when I became a mother. You know, you have to get pushed beyond your edges, and certainly motherhood will do that. I studied A Course in Miracles. My father introduced it to me, and I worked at the Center for Attitudinal Healing, founded by Dr. Gerald Jampolsky, who's famously wrote Love is Letting Go of Fear. He founded the Center for Attitudinal Healing after working with terminally ill children in San Francisco. A Course in Miracles helped me understand my inner guide that I discovered, and you may have heard this story, but I discovered my inner guide without knowing it. As a new mother, I was 18, and I was in my own little apartment with my baby, sitting in a rocking chair while he cried himself to sleep in the bedroom. That's what Dr. Spock said to do, right? Some of you don't remember it. If you have his book, burn it. I was in tears, following Dr. Spock's instructions. I wanted to be a good mother. And I may have even prayed. And just as I did, my guide surfaced, and my Catfish, also a teenage mother, strolled by. How did she know how to be a good mother? She had a bunch of kittens in the closet. And I thought, if she was endowed with an instinct, I can trust mine, right? And my instinct said, go pick up that baby and rock him. And so I did. And I've also learned to trust that voice. Another story, I left an abusive marriage when my third child, Leslie, was only 4 days old. I found the strength somehow and the courage to do what was necessary for my kids, their safety and well-being. I had a job at one of the best salons in Orlando, Florida, and my parents could help me with babysitting, but financially I was on my own. It was tough. I went to cosmetology school right after my first son was born because my mother-in-law owned 4 beauty salons and offered to pay my way. I was the only child in the family of 4 kids who didn't go to college right after high school. I always felt like a failure. It was a shame that I had also as a pregnant teenager. So as Barbara Kingsolver said, my insides were lined with shame like a badly wallpapered bathroom. So this was my shadow, and I didn't want anyone to see it. And being a hairdresser wasn't something I was proud of. You know, hairdressers were always portrayed back then as not very bright. Nice, but not bright. So I look back now and I realize how fortunate I was to have that skill. Wow, hairdressers are magic, right? But I wanted to study classical guitar. I wanted to go to college, and so I applied for a grant and went to the local community college. I loved it. I especially, surprisingly, loved English. Unfortunately, working part-time wasn't enough income for me to support my little family. And unless I quit my job, I could not get child care assistance. So they turned off my gas because I couldn't pay an $18 electric bill. My electric. And so my gas, right. I couldn't pay the bill. So I had to heat water in the electric skillet to give the kids a bath. And I kept hearing that guide, my inner voice kept saying to me, "You have everything you need." I screamed at it. I yelled at it. I ignored it. And then I realized that I did have everything I needed. I had a great job. I had a skill. I had 3 healthy children, parents who loved me and helped me. And I was young and cute and healthy. I had to put that cute in there because I was. So, and I began to feel a sense of gratitude, and I realized, if it had been the right time to go to school, things would have fallen into place better. So I quit school, and it broke my heart. But I trusted my guide. School would have to wait. And so my children came first. And I started working every hour the salon was open and winning awards. I finally won first place in the state in hair cutting, competing with 60 other people around the state. And I felt like a success when I could buy my children new clothes instead of used clothes. And that really, they didn't know the difference, but I did. And I finally bought a car that would start when I went to the grocery store and didn't have to be jumped. Anyway, I eventually remarried, moved to a farm in South Carolina where I raised my children and sent all 3 to college. I don't regret my decision for a minute. And then miraculously, after 2 decades, I had the opportunity to return to school. So the spiritual path is never straight or even. It can also, I always say my spiritual path looks a lot like a patchwork quilt, the crazy quilt, you know what a crazy quilt is? So I teeter on my seesaw like everybody else, but in the meantime, I'm holding on to one solid consistency, and that is the presence of that inner guide, the still small voice. So the Holy Spirit's direct intervention and nudging, you could call it that. A scholar named, her last name Farley, can't remember her first name, she elaborates on the reward of continuing on the journey. She says, spiraling down deeper, still we come to the incandescent fire that has the power to burn away every obstacle to love. When we, like Dante, pass through this sweet, excruciating fire, we come to the great emptiness where the divine image burns beyond light and darkness in a purity and luminescence that nothing can stain. So I recommend Robert Johnson's little book about owning your shadow. And he says there's tremendous energy there in your shadow. And you might just be able to tap into it. And he uses the example of parrots. He says the reason why parrots learn profanity, even though they don't know what it means, they delight in doing it, because when we swear, we have so much energy invested in it. And they pick up that energy that we have stored in our shadow. So I hope you've been intrigued enough to maybe want to embark on a spiritual journey of growing the soul. And it's a journey, never just, if you get to a destination, you think you're there, forget about it. It's not. But I'm offering a 12-session spiritual practice class. Starting in the fall, I'm going to gather the people who want to be a part of it, and we'll figure out the dates. But if you want to learn more about it or talk about the sermon, join me at 12:30 in the sanctuary. So now, please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 112, Do You Hear? Extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing words are by Tandy Rogers. May possibility take root where certainty once stood. May curiosity lead the way. May you loosen your grip, open your hands, and find that something unexpected is already unfolding. May it be so. Go in peace, and blessed be. had a great view of his feet. Who knew? We have a feast going on in the fellowship hall, hamburgers and hot dogs and brats. Oh my God, come let's join together in fellowship.